This is One on One. Hi, I'm Steve Adubato, coming to you from our Tisch WNET studios right here in Lincoln Center. It is my honor to introduce Gloria Reuben, who is an actor, singer, activist, and she is appearing in the movie Lincoln. She plays Elizabeth Keckley.
Yes.
And this is a very powerful movie, and this role is very important to you. Set it up for us. Elizabeth is whom?
Elizabeth was an extraordinary woman. In regards to who she was to the Lincolns, she was Mary Todd Lincoln's personal modiste, dressmaker, design maker, and confidant and best friend, actually, for the 4 years that the Lincolns were in the White House and for many years after that. And, you know, when I had first heard
Yes,
of...
she is right there.
Yeah. When I had first heard of the role, I'm embarrassed to say, I really am embarrassed to say, I hadn't even heard of Elizabeth Keckley. And
Not many people did.
Indeed, but I think that after this film comes out, you know, a lot of people will be more curious to know about her life. I know that, you know, from all of the research that I did, the books that I read, and the road trip that I took, I planned and did a research road trip to document the first 25, 30 years of her life.
Why?
Well, there were so many areas that I had read about where she, you know, where she was born, where she was raised, where she was, you know, she was born into slavery, and her biological father was her master, and they lived just outside of Richmond, Virginia, which is where we filmed. And throughout her first 25, 30 years of life, she was, you know, part of that family in the way that at 14 years old, she was given as a wedding gift to the eldest legitimate son. And that's how they would keep the slave family as a part of, you know, the legitimate family. And so her half-brother, whom she was a slave to, he and his wife moved to different areas of Virginia and North Carolina. And I wanted to walk the ground where Elizabeth walked. And there's something about reading about someone, obviously, on paper. There are only a couple of photographs of Elizabeth that there's a different one than the one we just saw that I immediately connected to. So there's something about seeing a still image of someone, no question about it. But there's nothing like being on the ground where they once walked. There's just nothing else like it.
You know, in preparing for the show and, you know, reading about you, and you have a very impressive background in the industry. Mm-hmm. But one of the things that struck me was that in the research for doing this, it kept referring to the fact that you got so close to this role.
Yeah.
That in many ways you relate it to Elizabeth on a very deep level.
Very much so.
Talk about that. Why?
I think that there are a lot of emotional parallels between the two of us. I was somewhat born into a second family, and my father was married prior to marrying my mother. He had 5 children, and then he met my mother, and, you know, his first wife had died, and then met and married my mother. And so I always had felt like I was part of, you know, the first family that didn't really embrace us. There was a certain kind of disconnect and a feeling of not belonging that I had always felt.
That you did not belong?
Yeah, definitely.
To the family that you were with?
To the extended family.
Got it.
As obviously Elizabeth did not quite really belong. Her experience as a young woman, you know, being raped, I've had a similar experience. The kind of fortitude that she had in order to, I can't even imagine, I can imagine, I can barely tap into it, but in order to become a successful businesswoman, in the 1860s, to become Mary Todd Lincoln's personal, you know, dressmaker, her like this, emotionally, that kind of fortitude and perseverance that takes, I can absolutely 100% relate to that. Elizabeth and I are completely self-made women, right out of the gate.
In getting ready for this, is there a part of you, by the way, this is a Spielberg project.
Yes.
I'm sorry I didn't mention that before.
Yes.
Minor detail. Talk about being good in business. Can you get too close to a role, to a character, too deep?
Yeah, I have to there's no other way for me to do it. I can't help myself.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how I am in my life, and that's it's certainly how I am in my work. When I was, speaking of Stephen, you know, he was one of the creators and executive producers of ER, and when I was on that show, you know, I played a woman who was HIV positive, heavily emotional role. Oh my gosh, that's me with curly hair.
It's a heck of a cast.
I know, it was a great time.
Who's the guy over on the right?
Oh, George. He still looks the same, as handsome as ever.
Right.
But yeah, it was extraordinarily taxing. With Elizabeth, you know, I just recently saw the film, so it was a year and a half between knowing that I got it and actually seeing the footage. And I have to say, it really hasn't been up until about maybe this summer, like, you know, maybe a few months ago, when I've emotionally been able to kind of release myself from this role. I think she was so extraordinary, and I want to do her justice, do you know? So I hope that I've done that.
Let me ask you, Jeannie Boulet is the...
Yes.
I don't want to get you.
No, I'm fine.
The bigger message, I'm not going to say the bigger message. The message of the movie,
Yes.
Lincoln, if you could give us a synopsis would be, is? Obviously, it's about the 13th Amendment, about...
To me, it's about
freeing the slaves, but there's
yes,
so much more
no,
going
I
on
think,
there.
frankly, I think for me, of course it's about that, the freedom, but also the thing that I find fascinating, the thing that really strikes me is the timing of it all, frankly.
Timing.
Yes. You know, Stephen had wanted to make this for many years.
Must be cool to talk about Stephen Spielberg and
As
just call him
Stephen?
Spielberg.
Well.
That's all right. You can do it because you work with the guy, so it's fine.
But that's how he is anyway.
My
you
wife
know,
calls
even
me is Stephen,
She does.
except she's
Well,
just
that's
talking about
good.
Steve Adubato. No big deal. But go ahead.
I heard she calls you Stevie.
Oh no,
Hey,
stop! That's
hey,
what my mother.
Stevie.
Stop!
Oh,
Oh,
no.
see, why do you have to break into an Italian thing like
I
that?
don't know. I can't
That's-
help myself. I'm born.
See,
I'm
you
Italian
go right
at
into
heart.
the character. That's what it is.
I
Go,
know.
ahead. Go back to talk about Mr. Spielberg. Go ahead. As you were saying.
Mi dispiace.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not so bad,
It's
right?
not
That's
so
the
bad
only-
at all.
yeah,
I'll
not so
accept
bad.
it.
Okay.
Even though we're from Southern Italy, we chop up the language a little bit.
Well,
Go ahead.
then,
Go
that's
ahead.
my favorite part. So Mr. Spielberg
Yes.
has he's been wanting to make this film for a while. And my understanding is that for at least 10 years, he's been, 8 to 10 years, so pre-President Obama, right?
Right.
Now, for me, the timing of this film coming out now and us working on it while it was the 150th anniversary of the Civil War is beyond poignant. For us to film the passing, or the passing of the 13th Amendment, these scenes of the House of Representatives in the state capital of Richmond, Virginia, where there are statues of Robert E. Lee. Every time I walked into that building, I'm from Canada originally. I'm
Toronto.
Toronto, yes. I'm of mixed race, yes. I moved to Los Angeles in my early 20s, and it wasn't until I moved to the States where I really got there's a distinct difference here. There's still very much black and white. Still very much.
Very
it's in the
different from
soil
Toronto?
here. Yeah, absolutely, no question about it. So the timing of this film, yes, it's about the passing of the 13th Amendment. It's about the division of this country. 150 years later, we're still very much divided, I think. Well, we can't deny that we are not symbiotic at all by any means. We see it in Congress. It is what it is. We see it now more than ever since Barack Obama has been in the White House.
By the way, we're taping right before the 2012 election, but go ahead.
Indeed. That's right. So, to me, the message is, of course, the freedom and the passing of the third, but how a leader what he can do to help literally unify this country. And for it to, I sometimes wonder when we will truly, move forward and
Or whether. Gloria Reuben, actress, singer, activist, appears in Lincoln as Elizabeth Keckley. And by the way, thank you for this. This is a terrific book, edited by Carl Weber, and chapter 2, you did.
I did.
All
I
about
wrote.
Elizabeth, and
Yes.
I wanted folks to get out there and see the movie and read the book. And I want to thank you for joining us here at our studio at Lincoln Center.
Thank you for having me.
You had
It's
a
been
great deal.
pleasure.
All the best.
Thank you.
Stay tuned. We'll be right back right after this. Thank you.
One on One with Steve Adubato has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation, celebrating 25 years of broadcast excellence. This special edition of One on One with Steve Adubato is brought to you from the Tisch WNET studios at Lincoln Center. Funding has been provided by Hackensack University Medical Center, Berkeley College, TD Bank, Qualcare Inc., a local managed care company covering 750,000 New Jersey residents, the law firm of Gibbons PC, and by Verizon Communications. Promotional support provided by the Star Ledger and NJ.com, Everything Jersey, and by the New Jersey Business and Industry Association and its monthly magazine, New Jersey Business. Transportation provided by Airbrook Limousine, serving the metropolitan New York, New Jersey area. One on One with Steve Adubato has been produced in partnership with St. Joseph's Healthcare System.